Great. Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming here. I know some stiff competition. There's that fancy AI workshop I kind of wanted to go to. But so we'll just get this done and we'll go. It'll be great. Now, we're here to talk a bit about how UVU added lecture capture to every classroom. We are with UVU. We'll introduce a bit in a second, but just we'll go over the history, kind of our process with this. We feel it, I don't know, had some good things to glean from it. The prototype we came up with, our lessons we learned from that, with the issues that were there, and then what our current solution is. I'm Brandon Bolander. I'm the Assistant Director for AV Services at UVU.
And I'm Daniel Lewis. I'm Architect and Engineer for UVU.
Yep. He's also a spy. What's the word? You've been not doxxed, but all right. Anyway, this is our team. We got a good big team. This isn't the full team. This is just the team that had photos that we could pull from here. But just a little bit about us with Utah Valley University. We're about 45 minutes south of here. And the way we do things at UVU, we do have a large team, and partly that is due to we kind of have a full stack, do everything in-house structure. We develop and design our AV systems. We have a team of field engineers that do their install work for all of campus and all of our campuses. And then we also have a team within there that support all of our systems. And so we kind of have this, I mean, everything informs everything else. We all wear multiple hats. Dan and I do a lot of engineer work, but we also get dirty and hang TVs and projectors at times.
Answer support calls, whatever's needed.
Help our support team. Our support team also gets a little bit of experience with doing install work, and so they're able to do some support things. We actually will talk a lot about that. I think tomorrow morning we have a session that will go into that. So we'll go from there. To start things off, jumping right in, COVID, does everyone remember when that happened? Well, it happened to us. I don't know about you guys, but March 2020 came around. We heard about this coronavirus and what might be coming from that, and then all of a sudden one day we all get sent home. We're all kind of chilling, right?
Yep. Just enjoying life.
Yes. It's really easy to do AV from home. But we, not long after that, received, oh, you're good, a directive from leadership. We needed to figure out a way to bring the classroom to our students, even if they couldn't be there in the classroom. Everything working all right?
Yeah, we're just getting like a little bit of interference with
Okay.
the video feed a little bit, but I'll come back in a bit. Sorry.
No worries. So, yes, I'm sure this is not an unusual thing. I'm sure we all experience this in our own ways, right? But we had to figure out a solution for this, and we're given kind of these requirements. So 370 rooms is what we identified as the rooms we were going to do, and at the time that was about all of our classrooms, they had a kind of typical
standard classroom layout.
Classrooms and system.
Non-specialty.
Yep, and they had to have lecture capture and streaming. So whatever we did had to serve both functions, to record and to give synchronous streaming to the students. Quick question, I actually was going to ask this. Let's rewind. So I'm just curious, of everyone here, how many are like campus or institution, like AV owners, or of your institutions? A few. Do we have vendors here? Or I remember I was in your session. Okay. mostly us campus folk as well. But so if there's something we need to focus on, just let us know. We'll focus on it. Anyway, so yes, had to serve both functions. Had to be easy for students and faculty to access, right? Simple, a hands-off kind of approach, and capture everything that the students needed to be able to participate in a class from either remotely and asynchronously. Okay.
So in doing this, we run into a classic problem in design, right? We have the iron triangle where we can either do it fast, we can do it cheaply, or we can do it well, right? And you can pick two of those generally and get a good result. So we were already kind of constrained on this particular problem. We had a very short timeline. We had to do it fast, right? It had to be ready for the next semester in order for us to be able to continue with those classes and fulfill those requirements.
Yep, which gives us about 4 months.
Yep.
Yes, to do that.
And so we kind of got to pick, what do we want to go, cheap or good? And at least on this initial one, we were pretty constrained. We didn't have a lot of budget initially in order to make all of this happen. Some factors came into play that alleviated that a little bit, but.
Sure, and we're in the middle of COVID. You guys, I'm sure, also experienced similar supply chain, right? Right when you need all this new fancy equipment, none of it's available. And so we had to get creative or just, make some concessions, figure out what would work, maybe not what's best, but what will work. And then we also had to do it within, we're part of a higher ed institution. There's policy, there's state contracts, there's, all that kind of stuff to work through and work around. And that stuff is not always the most time efficient. Some of those processes. So yeah, had all that to work through. So all that said, we kind of, as we started building this concept, this idea, it kind of looked, this was the general idea of flow of how the back end would work. And this is what we worked towards. Basically, you'd have your AV system up here with all of your sources and things that would kind of feed in to your lecture capture. We went with a lecture capture PC for budget, for what we could afford and what we could get. And then
the classroom schedule would be fed into that, and then every class would then be individually and automatically recorded based off of the campus scheduling, and then those would then be integrated back into our LMS so that they would become available to the faculty and to students when faculty approved those videos.
Yep. And then here's just a quick overview of the system itself that we did our first prototype in production, because really that's what it was. We'd buy things, we'd realize we couldn't get enough of them, we'd get something else, but this is more or less what it turned out to be. We had 2 different main devices in the rooms. We already had a room PC, and that was going to be our Microsoft Teams streaming, synchronous, students remotely joining class. And then we had our lecture capture computer.
Yeah, and there, as you can see, there are really 2 pathways that we have to take with any individual piece of equipment that's coming into this room. So we have to split the camera into 2, we have to split the microphone into 2, and you can see the pathways that we're kind of following to get there. So on the audio side, we took the microphones we had on hand, which was kind of a mix of things that weren't really designed for this application, and we ran them over analog, so XLR, down into an adapter, converted it to USB so that we could get it into these systems, which were both computers. And out of that same adapter, we took a secondary line, a monitor out using 3.5 into a sound card that captured it into the other system. So that's kind of the flow there. And then on our video side, we had a PTZ camera that flowed out over USB, over a USB extender to one side of the system. And then for the other side of the system, we took the RTSP stream and ingested it using a software on this system up here.
Yeah, it was really janky. And I will say, I want to throw this out. We don't want to disparage any brands at all. You know, it was great we could get what we were able to get in this first iteration. And I mean, a lot of these things are great in their own application, but for what we were doing, maybe they weren't ideal.
We were using them outside of the scope of what they were intended to do.
But they worked, more or less, for this first go-around.
Yep. So our microphones, a good example of this, the microphones we ended up using, they were not intended for this application. And at the time, there weren't a lot of microphones that were well-intentioned for this. Mm-hmm. So we had on hand conference microphones and other styles of that. Yep. And in a way, they worked well. They're low profile. They were pretty quick to install. They were a familiar form factor. We were able to, you know, kind of leverage our install team to get them installed fairly rapidly. But they had some downsides. They're omnidirectional. They ended up picking up a lot of noise just from students rustling or, you know, conversations in the back.
HVAC, you know, the like, right? Same here. We were pulling things in from analog into USB this way. This necessitated us having to do minor adjustments in every single room differently and on site, which was not ideal. Our cameras, we hadn't really done a lot with PTZ cameras at the time, and what we were able to find, learned a lot there. We had to make some custom-made DB9 serial cable, what did we call them? Just adapters or breakouts to get control for these. So that was not ideal either.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead on.
So capture cards. At the time, we definitely hadn't done much with capture cards. This was not something we'd really delved into at all. So as we started to implement these, we were able to pretty quickly determine that we had some issues. So these were being installed inside of podiums in cabinets with semi-decent ventilation in some cases, and it caused a lot of overheating. These are devices that were generally consumer devices. They were not meant for these high temperatures, and they did not run well in those high temperatures. Uh-huh. And there were a couple other issues we ran into with flickering on inputs. As you would change or plug in an input, you would get some flicker and some things like that. Again, this was not the use case that they were intended for. We were definitely using them out of scope. They worked, but there were issues.
Now, I wasn't in the previous session, but it was about being safe to fail. So I don't know if this was a good example. I don't know how safe it was, but we did definitely fail in a lot of the, I guess the uptime and supportability of this system, but learned a lot as we went. But with some of the issues, yeah, definitely with consumer grade stuff, running into USB hub counts, that was a big thing. And then USB extension. I know we've come a long way in that technology, and I love the Snickers, because by golly, I don't know, who has had a great experience with USB extension? And maybe you had, this is great, I'd love to hear it. But at least at the time, with what we had, with what we could get, it created a lot of issues.
Yeah, they're really great in that they extend USB. USB is easy to use when it works.
But all it boiled down to, what we had, it really wasn't built for an enterprise environment, is really how it boils. So we were supporting, having to run and reset and do things often to get systems back up. So just a lot of support headache. And I went on to talk about just the process of getting everything put together. This is our campus, by the way. It's beautiful. We've got beautiful mountains. Utah's great. If you don't live here, you should come visit. But it took so much interdepartmental coordination to make this happen. On top of just R&D and figuring out what the system itself was going to look like, it was a matter of figuring out who needed to help with what. Our automated scheduling that we had come in, we had to work with our IT automation team, with general academics, with academic scheduling, to get all the proper like APIs and things in place to make that work and to work reliably.
Yep. And we had to work with security to make sure that our IT security team, so that anything we were pushing out wasn't going to increase our attack surface as we were doing this. And so there's just constant coordination between a large number of departments.
Yep. So we also had, with our IT leadership, they basically gave us, in a few occasions, everyone they had, more or less, to just help us blitz the physical, actually getting into each room and plugging in stuff and making that all work, and we couldn't have done it without it. It made for a lot of messy podiums, which was a problem for another day. But at this point, we had a system. It was running.
It was functional.
It was functional, and that's the end of the story. No, it's not. No, it's not. So from there, we're able to start looking at what can we improve, where can we improve it, and I guess any questions at this point on that thing? I mean, I'm sure others have had similar stories of some kind. Yeah.
What was, at this stage, how was it getting the faculty to use the stuff?
So that was part of the discussion, because it's such a change, such a different idea. Our concept was, we want it to work without like them having to be involved to do anything. Like, it should just work.
Because you have faculty coming across campus sometimes. They're coming from the research lab. They're walking into a classroom. They don't need something else that they have to figure out to start their class.
I will say, getting them to start figuring out how to use Teams and like using that in the class. Like, we have a department, the Office of Teaching and Learning, which helped a lot with training faculty on how to set up a class in Teams, right? And how to do all of that, and start a Teams call. And but the lecture capture part was happening kind of completely behind the scenes. They didn't have to hit a start, stop. It just went based on schedule. And that was kind of the hope, was to make it as easy for them.
It seems like the idea of recording inside of Teams was pretty immediately tossed out the window. Can you talk about?
Yes. We could not get a commitment of quality, basically, from them. And so based on bandwidth on campus and to Microsoft, varying levels of record quality would.
Yeah, one of the major issues that we ran into, and one of the requirements that we talked about early on, is there was a need for being able to see the entire classroom and the content, so that you could see the class discussions, but you could also see the exact content that was being shared. And that was a difficult thing to do through Teams because of that compression. So we would end up in cases where a student would be off campus and they would try and view a video and would not be able to see what was being written, or even be able to see what was being shown on a display.
Yeah. So we had, and I didn't even talk about this, but we went with Kaltura. They have a state contract, and that seemed like the logical choice. And honestly, they were great to work with and help us with working through their different APIs and hooks and getting what we needed from it to using the system.
Sorry, one more
Yeah.
question sort of along those lines. Where did the decision to add another computer come from? Because it seems like you would be able to potentially host the team meeting and also do the lecture capture on the same computer.
You can, and we have actually done that in several spaces, but in this case, we wanted something that we could fully automate and wouldn't be interfered with on a teacher's side, because if it was
Yes.
running and someone came in and they see an application running, they're like, oh, close that.
What is it? What's this do?
Close that, gone. And then an hour later, where's my recording? You promised me a recording.
Yeah, and honestly, we did a lot of these suggestions are great because we like went down that avenue and then ran into these scenarios or these situations that are like, no, that's probably not going to be the best solution. It's not going to work for us. So, well, from there, we iterated to increase our stability and uptime, and this is the system, and honestly, steps between this, but fast forward 5 years, and this is the hardware setup that we have now for our lecture capture.
Yeah. You can see the flow at a whole is very similar. We still have two separated systems. The one that's doing the lecture capture recording, the one that can do the hybrid classes through Teams or Zoom or whatever hybrid you're doing. And then we still have a similar microphone that's now, instead of going over an analog, we're going through AV over IP, or Dante in this case, to a dongle that goes into these systems, makes that split much simpler. Our camera, we went to SDI, because again, it makes that split very easy. And then we can capture those using capture cards into these two systems. We bring in our class content from our AV in classroom system, and all of those are captured and available to the sources.
Yep. So like we said, big change for us was moving into Dante for our microphone and an audio. No interference, all digital. Basically eliminate a lot of that just off the bat.
Yeah, the ease of install on these is really hard to beat. Yeah, one of our team here can attest to that. It really makes it a lot simpler to go into a room. You can, run Cat 6 to this, plug it in, and honestly, we found you can plug them in and they work out of the box, even if you don't have time to adjust DSP. Yeah. So we are actually running this on our production network.
You have a separate network than your...
So we've run in both cases actually. So we have run this on our production network. Generally we try and do a VLAN that is specifically for AV in a room. But this honestly has run flawlessly on our production network for years now.
Yeah, and we do have a good relationship with our network department, but honestly, there hasn't been a much need for any adjustments on their end.
Yeah, we worked with them initially during that push, as Brandon mentioned, when we were first starting this out. We ran some tests with our networking team just to see bandwidth requirements and switching requirements and what was going to be necessary in order to handle this traffic. And we found that it wasn't really that big of a lift to do audio. Video is a different take, but audio we have had zero issues with.
Yep. So our PTZ cameras, our original models we had were either HDMI or USB extended, and we ended up landing on SDI as our transport for them, and found that to be extremely stable for us, right? And have kind of not looked back when it comes to that. It just works kind of scenario. And then Visca over Ethernet for our control there, and that helped level up even at the time, we've been doing pretty much all serial for everything, you know, and so getting our programmers to build for that worked pretty well too.
And one thing I'd like to call out here is we started out without this as a requirement, this RTSP. It has since become a hard requirement for us on cameras because it allows us to tap into any camera on our network remotely, which means we can troubleshoot a room remotely and see what's going on in there, see if there's something wrong with the orientation, see if there's something wrong with the view that they've selected, and resolve those issues without having to dispatch somebody to that room. So it's been a major boon for us.
Just getting eyes on what's going on there from that perspective definitely saved us some footwork for sure. And then enterprise capture cards, having something that's kind of designed for these environments, also being able to make very specific adjustments to color space and things like that in some instances has just been the difference to a working capture and not. So we've been really, like, we've just, again, loved it. Loved having those. Yep, and then SDI splitter, no fuss, just works. Yes, this brings up another, or this brings us to our discussion with network. While the Dante worked great, as we rolled out, our network team came to us and basically said,
You're causing problems. So as we rolled this out to our entire campus at once, this was a massive spike in traffic because every time a class would end, the recording would finish and it would start uploading that immediately to the cloud, right? To be available to the LMS. So as you can see, this is what we would get. Every hour, a giant spike in our bandwidth utilization. So much so that we were causing degradation on other services as those were trying to upload. So they came to us and they said, hey, we've got to figure something out here. And so we went in, we implemented a cap on the amount of bandwidth that was available to this upload service and kind of spread that out a little further so that we weren't hitting quite as hard on that upper cap. Yeah.
The blue spikes are you
The
guys?
blue spikes are us.
Yellow?
So that's overall like receive. And so we're getting a lot more in than we're sending out, but in those cases where we are, you know, doing these uploads, you see those spikes. So.
yep, so hurdles, things to figure out. Another thing that we started implementing and adding, it's not widely used, but so part of this was just this default opt-in. So if you're going to teach classes, they're going to get recorded. And we talked about how the faculty does have, they have ultimate control. These don't default show to their classes. They need to actually, like, basically check the box to say, share this with my class. Because some faculty don't want all of their classes shared there or have their various reasons. But we did allow, or we did provide campus an opt-out process for any of our faculty that didn't want to be recorded.
Along with that, they also have the option of sharing a class, a separate class with a course. So if they teach two of the same course and there was a particularly good discussion, sometimes they will share a class recording so that they get the benefit of that good discussion in another course.
Yep. And then leadership is working on our policy to help us define a deletion policy for old recordings, because we currently have one and they take up a lot of space. But working on that. So we also get access for monitoring on so many things with the computers, right?
Yeah. So with that, obviously there's some challenges if you're running your own system, if you're building your own recording system like this. So we created a local watchdog, basically a software that manages a lot of the common failure points that can occur. So it has really deep roots into our system. It can examine the hardware that's available and select what hardware it thinks it needs to be. And so if there's a problem, somebody comes in, unplugs something, it doesn't break the system, it's able to intelligently decide what it needs to reconnect back into the recording system so we don't get failures commonly from just bumping something or unplugging and forgetting to update it. So because it was written locally, we didn't have a lot of visibility into that. So then we had to bring that back out to a dashboard so that we have visibility on what's going on there. And we're in the process of improving those dashboards and making them more usable across campus. So.
Yeah, 100%. One thing to note, just a lot of this stuff definitely is pushed. I mean, we're I guess as a department, we've grown accustomed to, and maybe others can identify with this, of figuring things out for ourselves. Sometimes AV doesn't quite fit perfectly in IT, and it doesn't quite fit perfectly in academics and facilities or wherever, you know. And so we've, as a department, kind of taken this like, well, if no one else can do it for us, we'll figure out a way to do it ourselves. And so a lot of this is that, but it's definitely pushed us beyond what you would typically have an AV department do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've grown for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, oh, and I will say, I just want to call out too, we didn't talk much about like a box solution. And one of the reasons, at least at the beginning, that we didn't go that route with a box designed specifically for lecture capture was cost. You know, at the initial, we were very limited budget-wise, and our entire solution was cheaper than just the box if that was the route we wanted to go. And so we developed, with the time we put in making this what it is, with 99% recording uptime, it's just been good for us.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. And so just as a recap, I mean, we started out with something that was extremely fragile, very prototype. Now we're at something that we feel is very enterprise. It is supportable. It works and operates in our systems. And in all of these, from a duct tape solution to something that we're proud to say is what we can provide to our campus and our faculty and students. Yeah, I won't read the slide. You can read it. So, I mean, that's what we have to share. Is there any other questions about? Yeah.
So, on some of your larger rooms, do you have to integrate with local sound reinforcement as well, or is that completely kept separate for reasons?
Good question.
Yeah, so if we have a larger room, we'll run a DSP, and out of the DSP, we'll bring whatever channels we want to bring out of that into our recording system.
Yeah,
So
great
the
question.
setup you described is for the ones that don't have.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is a standard classroom. It's not, like I say, we've since gone on and done those specialty spaces because this has been a very popular thing. And so,
Yeah, definitely some customization where needed for the space. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
You folks have any sort of medical graduate program on campus?
We do. We have nursing and recently, within the last few years, a PA
Did you run
program.
into any issues with like HIPAA compliance and stuff that you?
So a lot of what they have, there is one of their labs that we did provide them with Kaltura, but that was one of those instances where we put it on the same machine that they have, and they have complete control over how and when they use it. They'll just start their own recordings. So, and then they have simulation capture stuff that's separate from this completely.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, lots of different edge cases for sure. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, thank you for, oh, whew. I'm under the wire.
On your approach to managing your microphones and the Dante connections on your campus.
Sure.
So we actually use Dante Domain Manager for everything we do there. In some cases, we will just do local connections. that are just direct point to point. But overall, we've had really good luck with Dante Domain Manager and having everything in there visible and usable from there.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, and it's kind of like for you and for everyone too, but how are you managing, or do you have any pushback on recording of classrooms for like students for their, for safety, for applying for video and everything? We have not, to be completely
Sure.
like, we only share the classes, the videos with the classes that they're in, so the idea is kind of like that it can go that way, but when you were mentioning also that instructors can share with other classes and everything, have you had any conversations on campus about it?
I've not seen any for that specific. Are you aware of any?
Yeah, there has been some. The policies are in place and reviewable by faculty. Generally, it is not something that is shared outside of a course, but there are cases where they get exceptions to be able to share between one course and another. So it's not the norm for sure.
Yeah.
But overall, most of the faculty, there was initially pushback on it. Over time, we have found that faculty are more and more proponents of it. They're honestly some of the first ones to complain when it doesn't work. So I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we've had a similar thing, and honestly, we've had classes move because the students, because it wasn't being recorded, and there's a big enough push from the students to the faculty that they actually moved classes, into a room that could be recorded. So you've seen that shift or something.
Yeah.
If you were to start building this from scratch on a campus that has regular podium computers already, we've got cameras in a lot of the classrooms, but not all of them, and we definitely aren't like nothing's on. We have some Dante stuff, but like we're not
Very
fully Dante
little.
integrated. Any tips or like where would you start knowing what you know now?
Sure. Well, so I wouldn't, if you don't have to, I wouldn't go the route with our first go.
I learned from that one.
Yeah. If nothing else, yeah, that's a great start. Before we got things really like on the network widely, we would put come on, brain, switches, like local switches in our podiums, just as like a local little network to have things running. So that was nice, at least for like the digital audio. That was helpful.
Yeah, even if you're not necessarily going for a full-blown installation, you could still do, like Brandon mentioned, you could do a local microphone plugging into a local switch that just runs point to point, and that would get you audio. And then your camera, you would need to bring in either through USB extension or HDMI extension,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, or SDI, and get it to that point.
Yeah, and
But-
I mean, sometimes, you know kind of what your capabilities are. I know in some instances we started with, there was a USB document camera or something like that became the source, and they had control to move it and point it at stuff,
Or webcams.
Or
Like,
webcams,
Yeah,
yeah.
sometimes that's the easiest solution to get started in a room. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, if money wasn't as big a deal, it's never not a big deal.
Sure, yeah. When that happens.
If you were starting over, for people who didn't have it, would you recommend going like with a purpose-built box?
I would be,
Or, it seems to be there are benefits coming from what you've done also.
yeah, I mean, we have a lot of control over this, I think, and there's some cost, I think, benefits there too. I would be very interested in looking, and like, exploring that more if we had budget. Yeah, to get a specific box for each room, and what that could provide us. I mean, even the last time we looked, it was still a little cost prohibitive for us to do at scale,
Yeah.
Now we're at 600 plus rooms.
Yeah.
That's probably something I should have mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, this is scaled up. So.
This definitely scaled up, and
Yeah.
so, but yeah, if money was not an issue, that'd probably be great. It'd save us a lot of development work, for sure. Yes,
Do you have any
definitely not a plant.
other ways to potentially share information like this or tours on campus?
So yeah, reach out to us if you do have questions, and I have my card. I'm happy to give that out to everybody. I was gonna make a contact page, and I didn't, but I'll put my card out here for anyone who wants it. But that'd probably be the best way. We are working to put like this presentation and others that we're doing here up on our website, and so
Yep.
we'll have
We're
that
happy to
there as
work on
well.
designs with you.
Uh-huh.
Yep, so.
Yep, happy to share everything we have.
Yeah, you had another question back there.
Yeah, sorry to touch this, it's a little hard here back here.
Oh, our bad, sorry.
As far as capture content, how are you hosting it? Are you using cloud services and just living on the device itself? And what kind of access do you have to control it? Same thing like self-managed, but like how are they actually doing that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So great question. Most of that is actually handled by Kaltura, which is our provider. So they use AWS. So all of those uploads are going up to AWS and are stored there. Faculty do not have access to that server, but the link is then made to their LMS. So they see the video just pop up in LMS. And when it's there, they can edit it, they can delete it if they so choose. The copy is retained on the back end, but it is deleted out of their courses.
So it's working basically the same as like Echo 360.
Yes, absolutely.
Follow-up question, since you've had this in place for a long time, what kind of contingency or redundancy do you have with AWS?
That looks terrible.
That's a hard one because that's hard to mitigate against because it's not really a section that we control directly. That's a third-party vendor that is controlling that. So we don't have visibility into their containers or anything else. So unfortunately, that is something we are dependent on.
They do have a huge contract with Amazon, I will say. Like,
It's everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I ask, because we probably have the same problem at the same time.
Yeah,
It all shut down for the entire thing.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, we'll start over.
Yeah.
This is your recap. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. We hope it was helpful to you, and thanks for giving us your time and attention.
Thanks, guys.
Starting to feel like everyone at my school is never coming to
Yeah. Yeah, how'd you get around the security?
Ours doesn't want us.
I don't know.